Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. We're going to take 3,000 years of incredibly rich, complex Egyptian history and, synthesize the whole shebang down to understand their ultimate driving obsession, the quest for eternity. I want you to start by asking yourself a question. How far would you go and how much would you spend just to live forever? Now, imagine dedicating your entire life, actually scratch that, not just your life, but the entire economic wealth, the workforce, the sheer engineering power of your entire nation, solely to preparing for the day you die. Well, that is exactly what the ancient Egyptians did. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First, we'll cover engineering an eternal tomb, then the step-by-step mummy. After that, we'll look at the titans of the New Kingdom, followed by the Amarna religious revolution, and finally, returning to the old gods. So, kicking things off with Section 1, Engineering an Eternal Tomb. If you're going to live forever, you need a monumental, impenetrable physical structure to house you for the rest of time, right? But tomb architecture didn't just start with the Great Pyramids. It evolved, and it evolved rapidly. They actually began in the early dynastic period, with these simple, flat, rectangular structures called mastabas. But by the 27th century BC, they started stacking these on top of each other to create the step pyramid of Djoser. And then, literally just a century later, they perfected the awe-inspiring, astronomically precise Great Pyramids of Giza. It's like a giant puzzle coming together at lightning speed. Now, you might be wondering how they actually pulled this off. For decades, it was a total mystery. But recent archaeological discoveries, specifically these 4,500-year-old inscriptions found in desert quarries, have shown us the exact logistics. No aliens here, just incredible engineering. They use limestone, super strong gypsum mortar, and this massive Bronze Age ramp system connected right to the Nile to transport these impossibly heavy stones. So why dedicate all this national wealth and manpower to just one person? Well, because the pharaoh wasn't just a king. The pharaoh was viewed as a living god, the literal embodiment of Horus on earth. Their successful transition into eternity was absolutely crucial. It was believed to guarantee the cosmic balance and the continued prosperity of the entire Egyptian kingdom. It was high stakes for everyone. Moving right along to Section 2, the step-by-step mummy. Okay, so you have the impenetrable tomb, but now you need to preserve the vessel inside it. So the crucial point here is this concept of the Ka. The Ka was essentially the soul. But the ancient Egyptians believed the Ka could only survive the afterlife if it had a recognizable physical body to return to and repossess. Think about it. If the body rotted away, the Ka died forever, no afterlife. So embalming wasn't just some spooky tradition, it was an absolute biological necessity for immortality. And the process itself? It is wildly visceral. Just imagine the chief embalmer, wearing this imposing mask of the jackal-headed god Anubis, leaning over the body. They would literally insert a hook through a hole near the nose to pull out the brain. Then, they'd make an incision on the left side of the tummy to remove the lungs, intestines, stomach, and liver. They dry those organs out and place them into sacred canopic jars. But, and this is key, they carefully place the heart back inside because to them, the heart was the center of intelligence and feeling. After all that came the purification. They'd rinse the inside of the body with wine and spices, and then, get this, completely bury the corpse in natron salt for 70 whole days to dry it out. Right around day 40, they'd stuff the body with linen or sand to give it a lifelike human shape again, before wrapping it head to toe in bandages and finally placing it in a sarcophagus. They essentially engineered a foolproof way to turn a decomposing corpse into a permanent, eternal vessel. All right, let's jump into Section 3, Titans of the New Kingdom. Moving chronologically to what's known as the Empire Age, the 18th and 19th dynasties produced some absolute legends. I mean, you have Hatshepsut, a female pharaoh who secured enormous wealth through her incredible 20-year reign and massive trade expeditions to the land of Punt. Then you have her stepson, Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of Egypt, who conquered like 300 cities and won the fierce Battle of Megiddo. And of course, there's Ramesses II, Ramesses the Great. He built the monumental temples of Abu Simbel and even negotiated the first known peace treaty in human history with the Hittites. These titans etched their names into eternity through sheer force of will. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds, the Amarna religious revolution. So, right in the middle of this golden age, a rogue pharaoh comes along and nearly destroys thousands of years of established tradition. His name was Amenhotep IV, but he changed it to Akhenaten.
In an absolute shock to the system, Akhenaten institutes an early form of monotheism. He outright outlawed the state god Amun, forced the sole worship of the Aten sun disk, and literally dragged the entire royal court and capital out of Thebes. He moved everyone into the harsh, unoccupied desert just to build a brand new city called Akhenaten, which we now know as Amarna.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep his revolution went. It warped every single facet of Egyptian culture, especially the art. The rigid, idealized, broad-shouldered style of traditional Egypt, completely thrown out the window. Gone. Amarna art was strange, highly stylized, and totally unprecedented. The royal family was suddenly depicted with these androgynous features, elongated necks, small torsos, and large, drooping bellies. It was a complete visual overhaul.
But what's really fascinating here is that while Akhenaten was off obsessing over the sun god, international politics just kept turning. The Amarna letters, which is this amazing cachet of diplomatic correspondence from the time, show us that Egypt was just one part of a petty, global Bronze Age village. Historians call it the Club of Great Powers. You look at these letters and it's like Babylon wanted diplomatic marriages, Mitanni wanted gold statues, and Haughty was just constantly getting offended by protocol.
Seriously, listen to this incredible quote from the king of Assyria complaining to the pharaoh about slow messengers and not getting enough gold. He says, "Let him die right there in the sun, but for the king himself there must be a prophet." I mean, no way, right? It is just so funny and dramatic, and it completely humanizes these ancient god kings. They complained about money and slow mail, just like we do today.
Which brings us to our final act, Section 5, returning to the old gods. The Amarna period was kind of like a religious glitch in the Matrix. After Akhenaten died, Egypt desperately tried to correct its course back to traditional eternity. Enter the famous Boy King. Now, we all know his stunning golden death mask for sure, but Tutankhamun's greatest actual achievement in his very short life was undoing his father's revolution. He took the bold step to reinstate the old polytheistic system, moved the capital all the way back to Thebes, and famously changed his name. He went from Tutankhaten, which honored the sun disk, to Tutankhamun, honoring the old god Amun. But, even that wasn't enough for the hardcore traditionalists. Soon after, this military general named Horemheb takes the throne, and he executes a massive damnatio memoria, literally a condemnation of memory. He physically tore down Akhenaten's city, he chiseled Akhenaten and Tutankhamun's names right off the monuments, and completely erased the entire Amarna period from the official king lists. He was trying to scrub this religious glitch from eternity entirely. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. Horemheb tried to erase Akhenaten, yet we know his name today. These pharaohs spent their entire nation's wealth on tombs and mummies just to live forever. And when you look at our modern world, how we're still studying their engineering, how we marvel at their arts, and how we're still endlessly fascinated by their stories, you really have to ask yourself, didn't they actually achieve the exact immortality they were seeking? They didn't just build monuments of stone, they built monuments in the human mind that have lasted over 3,000 years. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.